It's December 27th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with the first preliminary hearing for impeachment trial of President Yoon Suk-yeol. The Constitutional Court is holding the pre-trial session at 2 p.m. on Friday, where the impeachment committee and Yoon's legal team will go over their plans for proceeding with the trial. And the anti-corruption investigation team has summoned President Yoon for the third time to appear for questioning this weekend over his martial law order. According to Ukraine's military intelligence, North Korean forces are suffering heavy losses in the fighting in Russia's Kursk region and facing severe difficulties, including a lack of drinking water as a result of Ukrainian attacks. Sources indicate that Azerbaijani Airlines plane that crashed near Aktau City in Kazakhstan on Christmas Day may have been shut down by Russian air defense system. The Kremlin warned against such speculation. The first preparatory hearing for President Yoon's impeachment trial is scheduled for this afternoon. We just heard news from his team that he will send a legal representative to this session, where judges will outline the main arguments for impeachment over his martial law order. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young is standing by at the Constitutional Court. Soo-young, walk us through what the preparatory hearing means and how it works.
Hi, Dami. Yes, President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment proceedings will kick off publicly in about 4 hours, with the first preparatory hearing to be held in the small courtroom at 2 p.m. Now, the purpose of the preparatory hearing is to organize the main arguments and evidence for the trial to proceed smoothly and effectively. And today, representatives from both sides, namely the Nat'l Assembly, which voted to impeach President Yoon, as well as Yoon's legal team, will present their arguments and the list of witnesses and evidence they wish to draw upon during the trial. The session will be presided over by Justices Chung Young-sik and Lee Mi-sun, who will set out the major grounds for impeachment and decide which witnesses to summon. Now, for former President Park Geun-hye, the 9 impeachment grounds initially presented by Parliament were narrowed down to 5, including involvement in corruption and abuse of authority.
Right, then I have to ask you, what will be the grounds for President Yoon's impeachment then?
For President Yoon, the impeachment grounds are likely to be disruption of the constitutional order as well as insurrection. The impeachment motion passed by the National Assembly against President Yoon over his martial law imposition, it accused him of violating 17 constitutional provisions and 8 legal statutes under the criminal law. A key point of contention will likely be whether to include the insurrection charges. Yoon, in a speech 2 weeks ago, argued quite fiercely that his declaration of martial law was a political act which is not subject to judicial review, and he argued that it is his executive right. Meanwhile, judges are reportedly reviewing whether Yoon violated Article 82 of the Constitution, which stipulates that the president's state action should be executed in writing and bear the signature of the Prime Minister and relevant cabinet members. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo and other ministers have said they did not sign the martial law order. Now, as of Thursday, Yoon did not submit, as requested by the court, the proclamation of martial law, nor the minutes of the cabinet meeting he held before he announced the decree.
And Soo-young, there was a sudden announcement early this morning that President Yoon is sending a legal representative to the court later today. How do you expect the hearing to go?
Right, Tammy. So after days of suspense and even speculation that President Yoon might skip the session entirely, it was only this morning that his team appeared to decide who will represent him today and who will lead his battle against the impeachment case. Now, according to the announcement, lawyers including Park Bae-yoon, who served almost 3 decades in the Constitutional Court, have filed their power of attorney with the court and will attend the first preparatory hearing. Former prosecutor Yoon Gak-geun and former judge and former classmate of President Yoon's Bae Jin-han, they've also joined the team. While the National Assembly's impeachment committee handed a list of witnesses and evidence, as well as a power of attorney to the court on Christmas Eve, Yoon hadn't submitted any documents as of Thursday. He's been rejecting court papers delivered to his residence and office, as well as separate requests by investigators to present himself for questioning. Yoon is not obliged to attend the Constitutional Court's preparatory hearing himself, but it remains to be seen whether he will show up in person person to the actual trials to personally make his case, given his prosecutor background. Now, today's hearing is expected to wrap up within an hour. For instance, President Park Geun-hye's preparatory hearing lasted around 45 minutes.
Well, Soo-young, you'll have to keep us updated throughout the day, of course. Thank you for the report this morning. In the meantime, the main opposition Democratic Party has pushed through an impeachment motion against acting President Han Duck-soo after he postponed appointing justices to fill 3 vacancies at the court. Our political correspondent Sinayong has more.
During a plenary session on Thursday, the opposition-led National Assembly voted to give consent to the appointments of 3 constitutional justice nominees. The appointments of Ma Eun-hyuk and Chung Kye-sun were passed with 193 votes each in favor, while Cho Han-chang's appointment passed with 185 votes in favor among the 195 lawmakers present amid the ruling People Power Party boycott. There have been strong objections from the PPP, which argues that the nominees, even if confirmed by the Assembly, cannot be appointed by an acting president. Following the vote, Assembly Speaker Woo Han-sik urged acting President Han Duck-soo to finalize the appointments.
Since the National Assembly has completed the process for appointing Constitutional Court justices, acting President Han Duck-soo should finalize the appointments without delay or debate.
Ahead of the plenary session, acting President Han Duck-soo announced that he would delay appointing justices until rival parties agree on whether he has the authority to make such decisions. Han emphasized that it is the consistent spirit of the Constitution and law that an acting president should focus on stabilizing the country during a crisis and avoid exercising key presidential powers, including appointments to constitutional institutions.
If exercising such powers is inevitable, it has always been customary in our constitutional history for the National Assembly to first reach a bipartisan agreement. Until the ruling and opposition parties submit an agreed-upon proposal, I will hold off on appointing Constitutional Court justices.
In response, the main opposition Democratic Party immediately introduced an impeachment motion against Han, aiming to put it up for an assembly vote on Friday. The party had initially planned to submit the motion on Tuesday after Han refused to approve investigations into President Yoon Suk-yeol and First Lady Kim Gun-hee, but the plan was postponed. This marks the first impeachment motion against an acting president in South Korea's constitutional history. The PPP criticized the DP's move, claiming it targets not only acting President Han, but also the nation's governance, welfare, and diplomacy. Meanwhile, due to the ongoing confrontation, the launch of a joint consultative body comprising the rival political parties and the government to discuss current state affairs is facing a setback. The ruling and opposition parties initially agreed to establish the body and hold the first meeting on Thursday. However, a National Assembly official stated that the specifics of the joint talks have yet to be finalized. Sinayong, Arirang News.
It's the first official big legal day for President Yoon and his political future, with the first preliminary hearing on his impeachment trial taking place. We'll discuss more with lawyer Kim Ji-soo this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Let's first go over the focus of the first preliminary hearing. What is the hearing? Why is the hearing such a crucial step in handling the impeachment trial?
Well, the first preliminary hearing will happen at 2 p.m. on this very afternoon, and this is not the main trial, but just a preparation step. It's about organizing key points and planning how the trial will proceed. And both sides will send their lawyers to explain their basic positions and share how they will plan to improve their arguments. And it's more like setting the stage for the real trial, which usually comes after 2 to 3 of these preparation sessions. And these hearings are normally short, often less than an hour, and they help narrow down the issues so the trial can focus on what really matters. And this step is crucial since it makes sure both sides are focused on one single agenda, and it's like preparing a playbook before a big game to keep things smooth and fair.
So it's more like a warm-up for the impeachment trial process. Now, it seems like President Yoon will not make himself president at the hearing, which is not a surprise, but that really shouldn't be a problem for this hearing, right?
That's absolutely right. It won't be a problem. In this type of hearing, the respondent, President Yoon in this case, doesn't have to attend in person, and it's normal for the legal representatives to handle everything in the matter. And the main goal of this session is to prepare for the trial, not to argue the case. So in short, his absence isn't idle, but it won't stop the process from moving forward.
Right, so Yoon not being present, but it looks like he's nearly done forming his legal team since he is sending a legal representative to the session later this afternoon. Now, does that mean the impeachment trial process is right on track from now on?
Yes, it definitely seems so. President Yoon has finalized his legal team, and his representatives, including lawyers Pepo Yoon, are set to attend the preliminary hearing today at 2 p.m. And from now on, the focus will shift to preparing for the main trial.
And it's not just the hearing. President Yoon hasn't shown up for any of the summons requested by the special investigation team. That's why the team has issued another summons for the third time yesterday. Now, can President Yoon still refuse to show up now that he appears to have secured a legal representation, or is it a separate matter?
Yes, he can still refuse to appear even though he has legal representation. The summons for questioning and the impeachment trial is a two separate matter. The impeachment trial is handled by the Constitutional Court, while the summons come from the special investigation team working on criminal allegations. And having a legal team for the impeachment doesn't automatically mean he has to cooperate with the criminal investigation. And President Yoon's team could argue that he doesn't need to comply with the summon for now, and possibly citing his presidential duties or focusing on the impeachment trial, and refusing might raise questions about transparency and his accountability.
Well, on top of that, there are also speculations that an arrest warrant could be issued in the near future. Let's say that does happen. Can he be arrested immediately? I mean, is there anything he can do under an arrest warrant?
Well, if an arrest warrant is issued, President Yoon could technically be arrested, but this seems to be not the simple case. Well, first, as a sitting president, President Yoon will not be under the presidential immunity since the charges against him includes treason. And once an arrest warrant is issued, there's not much he can do about it. He might try to challenge the warrant in court or delay the process by arguing legal status. However, but these tactics usually don't work for long, and the investigations and legal process will still move forward. And if he continues to ignore the summons, it will likely hurt his public image and make his positions weaker. And even some of his colleagues have criticized him for using delay tactics, saying that if he were still a prosecutor, he would have already issued an arrest warrant in a case like this. It's becoming clear that time is running out for these stalling tactics.
Alrighty, thank you so much for joining us again this morning, Ms. Kim. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
South Korea's trade ministry has called exports the backbone of the country's economy despite difficult domestic and international conditions, with expectations that export figures should see an on-year growth for the 15th straight month in December. According to the trade minister Chung In-kyo during a meeting of regional export managers on Friday, South Korea's exports increased in 7 out of 9 major regions from January to November this year. Now, exports to China rose 6.4% on-year to $121.2 billion, with semiconductor exports increasing 30% from the same period last year. And exports to the U.S. also rose by 11%, while exports to ASEAN rose 4.7%. Ukraine believes the North Korean troops deployed to support Russia are now facing heavy losses in fighting, as well as logistical difficulties from Ukrainian attacks. Our Peunji has the details.
Ukraine's military intelligence says North Korean troops fighting alongside Russian soldiers are suffering heavy losses. The Defense Intelligence of Ukraine said on Thursday that Ukrainian strikes in Russia's Kursk region led to heavy casualties in North Korean units. It also said the North Korean troops are facing supply issues and even shortages of drinking water. This comes after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said earlier this week that more than 3,000 North Korean troops have been killed or wounded during battle. Kyiv had previously announced that Pyongyang had sent around 10,000 to 12,000 soldiers to fight alongside Russian forces. If the Ukrainian leader's claims are correct, that means at least a quarter of North Korean troops deployed to Russia have been killed or injured.
There are already over 3,000 wounded and killed North Korean soldiers in the Kursk region. Russia is simply disposing of them in assaults.
South Korea's intelligence agency also said last week that it estimates at least 100 North Korean soldiers have been killed and that over 1,000 of them were injured while fighting against Ukraine. Meanwhile, Ukraine's military said it found a diary of a dead North Korean soldier that describes tactics for shooting down Ukrainian drones. The Special Operations Forces of Ukraine posted a picture of the diary on its social media on Thursday, which includes diagrams and a memo of how they should move in a group of 3 to lure and destroy the unmanned weapons. The Special Forces said it deemed the method as using living human bait. As the war in Ukraine nears almost 3 years, the Ukrainian military recently released video footage of its forces killing North Korean soldiers with drones on the front lines in the Kursk region, apparently showing that North Korean soldiers are ill-prepared for modern warfare. 배은지, Arirang News.
4 Azerbaijani sources say the ill-fated plane that crashed on Christmas Day, leaving dozens dead, was shot down by Russia. A U.S. official also says early indications suggest a Russian anti-aircraft system may be what caused the crash. Lee Seung-jae reports.
With the investigation into the cause of the Azerbaijan Airlines J28243's crash on Christmas Day underway, a number of Azerbaijani government sources say the crash was caused by a Russian anti-aircraft system mistakenly shooting it down. Reuters on Thursday, citing multiple Azerbaijani government sources, said that while the initial cause of the crash was believed to be due to a collision with a flock of birds, a missile that was fired to shoot down a drone over Grozny, Russia, exploded near the passenger plane. The sources also say the plane's captain requested an emergency landing at a Russian airport, but was denied and instead instructed to cross the Caspian Sea to Aktau in western Kazakhstan. The Wall Street Journal, on the other hand, believes that the Russian military may have mistaken the passenger plane for a Ukrainian drone and shot it down. Kyiv claimed that it was likely shot down by a Russian air defense system based on holes in parts of the plane. Azerbaijani sources stressed that no one is claiming that the alleged actions were done on purpose, but they were just taking established facts into account. In response to the growing allegations that Russia was behind the crash, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said it's wrong to speculate before the investigation concludes.
Now, as you have rightly said, the investigation is underway. Any aviation incident should be investigated by special aviation authorities, and until investigators make their conclusions, it would be incorrect to make any kind of hypothesis. So we cannot do it, and nobody should do it. We must wait until the end of this investigation.
Meanwhile, with the investigation into the deadly crash taking shape, the Brazilian Air Force dispatched investigators to Kazakhstan. According to the Brazilian officials, 3 investigators were sent to provide technical support to the Kazakh authorities in the investigation process. The ill-fated passenger plane was a twin-engine jet manufactured by Embraer, a Brazilian multinational aerospace corporation. The crash killed 38 people on board the plane, but also saw 29 survivors. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, let's take a look at the stories from around the world with our Kim Xiang. Good morning, Xiang.
Good morning, Dami.
So let's begin with the situation in the Middle East. Israeli attacks on Houthi targets in Yemen.
Yeah, that's right, Dami. So Israeli airstrikes have targeted the Iran-aligned Houthi movement in Yemen, as well as hitting a media van in Gaza. Now, on Thursday, Israel struck multiple targets in Yemen, including Sanaa International Airport, which had the head of the World Health Organization and other UN staff present at the time. Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus of WHO said in a social media post that Yemen's Sanaa airport came under aerial bombardment when he and staff were about to board a plane, adding that one of his plane's crew members was injured. Israeli strikes on Thursday, which also hit Yemen's power stations and ports, killed at least 3 people and left dozens injured, including 2 who were killed at Sanaa airport. That's according to Houthi media Al Masirah. Also on Thursday, an Israeli airstrike in Gaza struck a vehicle marked as a media van, reportedly killing 5 journalists from Al-Quds Today, a TV channel affiliated to the Palestinian Islamic Jihad militant group. The Israeli military said they carried out a precise strike on a vehicle, which they said had an Islamic Jihad terrorist cell inside. Now in Mozambique, at least 6,000 inmates have escaped from a high-security prison in the capital Maputo on Wednesday, amid post-election rioting and violence that has engulfed the country. Mozambique's police general commander said that 33 of the prisoners have been killed and some 15 others injured during confrontations with security forces. The police say that the inmates snatched weapons from the prison wardens before freeing other prisoners. This came amid violent protests that started on Monday, following the Constitutional Council's decision to confirm the ruling Frelimo party as the winner of the recent elections. 20 years after the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, thousands gathered on Thursday to remember the 230,000 people killed. On December 26, 2004, a magnitude 9.15 earthquake struck the coast of Indonesia's Aceh province, triggering a tsunami that killed hundreds of thousands of people across Indonesia, India, Thailand, Sri Lanka, and 9 other countries. Northern Indonesia's Aceh province saw the most devastating damage. Some 130,000 people in the province died, over 500,000 people were displaced, and some 180,000 homes and buildings were washed away. Now, Thailand also saw 5,000 deaths, including many foreign tourists, while more than 16,000 people either died or went missing in India. India's former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, who served the country for 2 terms between 2004 and 2014, has died aged 92. An economist turned politician, Singh, who also served as finance minister and the governor of the central bank, was considered the key figure in liberalizing India's state-controlled economy. On Thursday, the incumbent Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi paid tribute, saying that India mourns the loss of one of its most distinguished leaders.
Most of Korea is experiencing a sharp drop in temperatures. Morning lows in the capital are up to 8 degrees lower than the same time yesterday, but it feels like -9 degrees with that biting winds. And cold wave alerts remain in place for most of the northeastern regions, with readings going down below -10 degrees Celsius. Now, making matters worse is heavy snow in Chungcheongnam-do and Jeollabuk-do provinces, with a chance of heavy snow alerts issued later in the day. Parts of Jeollabuk-do province could see more than 20 centimeters of snow fall into tomorrow. And Chungcheongnam-do and Jeollanam-do provinces could see more than 10 centimeters. Daily highs will be a few degrees lower than yesterday at 1 degree in Seoul, but it will feel below freezing all day today. Daegu and Gwangju make it to 4 degrees. Now, colder air stays through Sunday morning with wet conditions in the south. Then 2024 will end under sunny skies, and New Year's Day looks to be a sunny one as well. Well, that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That wraps it up for us this morning. New Day at Arirang will be back next Monday at 10 a.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.